You look at your own leadership team, and sometimes it feels like the highest league of toddlers. A lot of power, not a lot of maturity. In my conversation with Coach Jim Johnson, we connect personal mission, one on ones, and what's important now to what it means to develop winners. Winners on and off the court and in business. Drawing from 30 years of building teams, Jim shows how knowing your mission and your people's mission turn the team into a place where mission is fulfilled and not where you lose yourself. Like this episode, subscribe to our channel, and DM Future to continue the conversation. My name is Arjan Visser, human centered futurist, and your host. And welcome, Jim.
Thank you, Arjun. I'm looking forward to it.
So do I. And I was actually thinking of throwing in something that you said in our pre talk of the podcast. You mentioned that true leadership is measured by who you are becoming, not by what you achieve.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Can you please explain a little bit? Because it sounds like there's a lot of depth behind that easy saying, hard living.
Yeah, absolutely. So, when I work with leaders, I do leadership presentations, and I was a leader. I was a head coach of a basketball program for 30 years. So, I was trying to always build and getting experience of how I could be a better leader to build, a great team and great team culture. But the thing I found out through a lot of reading and listening and learning. So the first thing I think is you have to be a student of leadership, and it starts with you. All right. And what I found is when I became a better me, that people followed me better because really who you become is either going to attract the right people or not necessarily attract the right people that you want to be around or surrounded about. So I think it's really huge. I read many years ago Dr. Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, when I was, I think in my early 30s. So I was still really trying to figure out life. And one of the things that really stuck out to me is he really encouraged people to have a personal mission statement. And I thought that was a good idea, mainly because I never even heard of that idea. So, and then I really started to focus on how can I be a better me? And so that when I come to and work with people, that I can attract the right people because of what I stand for, who I am, and really having clarity of my vision. So in doing that, I really took time, and I actually I'm doing a leadership presentation next week to a group of business leaders, and I'll talk to them about a few ideas about creating and developing their own personal mission statement. And the couple of steps that took is I started because I think it's something that doesn't jump right out at you, but you talk about it in the sense that you discover it. And I kept asking myself this question: why was I put on this earth? Or because I am a person of faith, I would say, why did God put me on this earth? So with that thought process, I started to really think through. And then the next thing, I started to really just determine what are the most important, what I call core values, in building businesses and teams. Most of them have core values. A lot of them have core values on the wall at their business, but really don't know what they are or practice them. And so I knew that I had to get clarity about my core values. And then after really starting to think through that, I put together a mission statement. I encourage people to put it on paper. And my mission statement was to be an outstanding role model that makes a positive difference in the world by helping others make their dreams come true. And I encourage people that when you are trying to become someone, that usually if you're going to get into leadership, you got to be thinking about, okay, how can I lead myself so now I can add value and serve others? And I think that's something that really changed my perspective in life, is when I got more clarity of who I was, so in what I tried to live each day. Because I think I heard this statement, and I think there's a lot of truth in it. People caught more than taught. And so I mean by that is the person you are, they're going to catch that. And if and like one of the things I always talk to leaders about is having an intentional trust plan. How do you build trust? Because when I ask people, is trust important in building a team or an organization? Everybody agrees it's very important. I said, well, if it is important, then you got to find a way to build trust. And when we took over different basketball programs, we came up with this 3-point plan of how we were going to build trust. And it started with me. All right. So I'll give you one example. One of the things what we really encouraged was we wanted to align our words and actions. Well, if I said that I was going to be here at a certain time and I did that, the trust account went up with whoever I was meeting or the team I was meeting, whatever it was. But if I broke that trust by coming late or not coming at all, that really hurts the trust account. So I think as a leader in developing yourself and then really modeling the behaviors that are important to you that you want to share with your team to make the team synchronize. I think that's really the essence of what leadership starts is that you got to be continuing to grow yourself. And what I found, I'll close with this statement and then we can delve into different things, is that if you're going to be an outstanding leader, as we said, it's leading yourself, and that means you got to keep growing. All right. I really believe people either grow or die because they either keep feeding their mind and keep coming up with different ideas and how they can better themselves. Because when they better themselves, they're most likely going to better the team they work with. And so I think that's something is I really encourage people to have a personal growth plan that they're intentional about. Like I have an intentional, I want to feed my mind with good material 80 minutes every day. And that's quite a bit. It didn't start that high. It started with 10 minutes and then I built up to that's how much I think personal growth is important in creating the person you want to become.
I love your answer. So many dimensions in your answer.
Thank you.
And I truly believe that you're redefining what personal growth means. Personal growth is expressed as being a leader for others
Hmm.
who catch who you are. And leadership is about being the role model. It's about modeling. It's not about what you say, it's what they see and what they hear is
Hmm.
aligned. So
Right.
you have to live it yourself. And and although it sounds so obvious, we also have to be real and say this is actually quite radical what you just shared.
Hmm.
And you started around in your 30s, and I remember it was also early in my 30s when actually the language was a little bit different. The language was, and I was working back then for the Ministry of Defense, and I only said this to my wife. Well, now it's public when I repeat it. But I said, when I'm 40, I want to be way more mature than what I see modeled around me.
Hmm.
I was the advisor for a general, and who was serving a 2-star general. And to be honest, I didn't recognize maturity.
Hmm.
What I actually saw was magnified a lot of immaturity. And
Hmm.
actually, we joked like this is like the highest league of toddlers.
Yeah.
Um, if you don't like it, I'm not going to share it. I'd rather destroy. Like those kind of behavioral things.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that that wake up call fits really when you're in your 30s.
Hmm.
And I love it, the modeling, because you can change yourself. We all know that you can't change someone else. You can only change yourself.
Right.
What you just gave was a testimony what that means. It means being intentional, accountable, make effort of your personal growth, prioritize your personal growth. And you as a sports coach has you must have had that tension between what this personal growth means and the overarching theme in sport. It's about the team, not the player. But you
Mhm.
say no, it's about the player. So how did you deal with that tension or maybe even paradox?
Yeah, that's a great question because that's something as a leader, because you got to get people with your actions and your words, as you talked about, and aligning so that they know that you care about them as a person first. And that sometimes is very hard when you're leading something because, in business, you have bottom line, you have to make a profit. You don't stay in business. In the sports world, if you don't win enough games, you usually don't stay as the coach. So there are some things that are driving you, but that's why we go back to what we were talking about at the beginning. If who are you? Who are you becoming as a person first, so that you do model and lead by example. I'm going to give you a quick little side story of how much the power, because we used to always tell our players that as a leader, you're always on stage and people are always watching you. And I didn't follow my advice one time. So one of the things we had our players when we traveled to another school, we wanted them to look nice, so we asked them to wear a shirt and tie. On the road trip, and when we walked in the other opponent's school. And one time I didn't wear a shirt and tie. And I'll never forget one after the game, one of my parents said, "Well, coach, you always talk about being a great role model. How come you asked our players, our sons, and in this case, to wear a shirt and tie and you didn't?" And I had no answer for it because I was wrong. I didn't model the expectation. And I will admit, it was a great learning experience for me. And after that, every time we went on the road, I wore a shirt and tie because I was the model. So I think that's something we forget as leaders, is that you are the person that should be modeling the expectations, the behaviors, the standards that you're setting, getting clarity about the mission, that you're living the mission and the core values every day by sharing, teaching, and modeling. And if
Yeah.
you can do that consistently, then you really start to build a team. And with that, one of the things I really encourage leaders to really zero in on your question is that you need to make sure that you're meeting with your team members one on one. Now, obviously, if you're a leader of a big company that has 500 employees, well, it's probably your leadership team, and that concept of one-on-ones has got to trickle down so that you have leaders of departments where they're meeting one-on-one, because you're not going to be able to meet with 300 people one-on-one consistently, but you can do it for a leadership group or a team that reports directly to you, 8, 10, 12 people. And I think that's where people, and I teach people about one-on-one meetings and some of the things you should try to accomplish in those one-on-one meetings. But what the bottom line is, what I think those are so helpful is because one of the things that really should be a goal of one-on-one meetings is building relationships, getting to know your people better. Because if they, one of the greatest compliments I ever received from a former player was when he told my assistant coach that he knew Coach Johnson cared more about me as a person than as a basketball player. And that meant a lot to me because I really tried to show that I cared about my people uh, individually. But at the same time, you had a very valid point. We do, when you're working as a team, you have team goals, and you're trying to get everybody to work together with their individual goals to help the team. And so that's a real balancing act as a leader. Uh, but when you can get people that they believe in you, that they know that you care about them individually, but also we're trying to work together to accomplish something special. And I think that's where you build the vision. Is the vision is, boy, you're going to have this great feeling and something special because we're going to do something outstanding as a team. And that's where I think you got to build that momentum, is really getting, clarifying that vision of where we want to go as a team.
I like that answer. There are a few things you mentioned that I like to unpack, because earlier you mentioned that you need to know, need to have clarity about your own mission. In a team, it's about one on one. So you need to have clarity about your team players' mission. And that great compliment goes for sports, but it goes for business as well.
Yep.
If your leader, if you feel that your leader respects you more, appreciates you more as a person than an employee, you already get a new dynamic.
Yes.
So if you know your own mission and you know the person's mission, then the team is a place where mission is fulfilled.
Yeah.
And then it's not, do I fit in the team, but does the team fit me?
Mm.
And that's a really important and tough discussion, because so many people want to become part of the team thinking it gives them the identity.
Mm.
What you just said is you need to know and find out who you are becoming, and the team can, in a way, magnify that, but not compensate that.
Mm-hmm.
And no, and then the team's goals, they fulfill personal goals.
Mm-hmm.
But this sounds nearly like a dream than reality. Although hearing your story and what it does with me, I believe it is that measurement of leadership that we love to call flourish or prospering. It is, our time is valuable. You are valuable, I am valuable. So when we do something together, it's valuable.
Mm-hmm.
And we tend to forget that
Mm-hmm.
for a higher goal than ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
It could be identity, could be prestige, could be a salary.
Mm-hmm.
The higher goal should contribute to who we are becoming.
Right.
But it sounds like luxury.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you deal with that in the high competitive environment where the players, their future, like in the context that you have been a coach, like
Mm-hmm.
um, scholarships were depending on it,
Mm-hmm.
careers. How did you deal with that? That people were maybe obsessed by living the dream, not their own dream, but a dream, the dream, the big dream.
Mm-hmm.
And you ask them by your personal approach to find out who they are and take care of themselves first.
Right. So I think it does start in having clarity about, in our case, the team mission. Our mission was to develop winners on and off the court. And as the leader, you're defining what it makes, how to be a winner on the court. Winning the game is part of that, but also being a great teammate, being able to handle adversity were some of the things that we taught, and hopefully they caught. And then as far as off the court, being an outstanding citizen in our community, being someone that does their best academically to keep growing their mind. So those are some of the things we were taught. But I think that's really important as a leader that, Jim Collins made it famous in getting the right people on the bus when he said. And so I think it's having clarity of understanding what are the type of people that are going to fit your business or fit your basketball team, in my case, in making sure. Then once you feel like you've have the right people on the bus and then putting them on the right seats, that's where we go back to the one-on-one. So like one of the things that we did after we chose our team is we would come over to my house and we would have a team goals meeting and everybody got to contribute. Then I always taught them that when you have a goal, you think it, you ink it, you write it down. So we wrote down our goals for that we wanted to accomplish for the season. But then the other thing I did at that meeting is I gave everybody an individual goals and roles sheet. And on that, they had to complete that. And then I met with every one of our players one on one, and I found out where do they see themselves on the team from their role? What were some of their individual goals? Because once I knew that, then it was the balancing act of getting them to buy into what the team goals with the idea that when we accomplish things as a team, it's also going to be a great asset for you. Uh, and you mentioned like scholarships. I had a few players that got scholarships, and some that played, and not a scholarship level after high school at college. But in what the things I really tried to sell to the players is you're going to be more attractive because you play well on a team that's successful, because they're always looking for people uh, that are individual contributors that really care about the team's success. And that's something I was selling all the time. And I think for the most part, most of the time they bought into that, is that, yes, I have individual goals, but if the team succeeds, that's going to help me as much as well. So
Yeah, yeah, and I love that. So it's the dynamic, it's the tension, and it's the paradox, and there
yeah,
is room for all.
yeah,
Um, but implicitly, I hear you redefining the meaning of what success looks like. And I've been involved in many strategic sessions in business. And when you ask them, what does success look like beyond profit? Most freak out. So I could imagine in sport, if you say, what does success looks like besides trophies? So how would you capture in a few, maybe even we can call them quantifiers, what success looks like? Because in general, the definition of success is not defined by who we are and who we are becoming, but it's an external reference point.
right.
So how would you define what true success looks like, being that authentic leader you described and you testified about?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, because I think as a leader, there has to be a lot of clarity of what that definition of success is. All right. And because you're right, there's very measurable things in both business and in sports, from the fact of results. But one of the things that I think that is really important as a leader is sharing the success in our case. And I've seen this a lot, and I believed in this, is that it's a process. And really the process, what I was really trying to teach our players is, on a daily basis, are we getting a little bit better each day? And I know I've seen this, and but there's some, I think, some real truth, that the famous 1% rule. Like, if we can get 1% better today, then life is going to compound. All right. And I talked to him about how a bank account, if you keep putting money in, and with compound interest, it's going to keep growing, growing. Well, the same concept in the human behavior is that if we get a little bit better with our mindset, our attitude, some of the things we can control, with our work ethic, and the ability to care about each other, if we can get just a little bit better each day, it's amazing how that will continue to compound and make the team special. So I love this little short acronym for WIN. And WIN is what is important now. And that's something I really try to stress to our team, is today is another day for us to improve and get better. And if we can just adopt that mindset, that that's what success is every day we're going to strive to get a little bit better. Now, realistically, did that happen every day? No. Okay. But that's the mindset we were trying to develop in sharing, what does success mean to us? Success is daily growth, so we get a little bit better each day.
What is important now? I mainly get the dilemma in business. Most CEOs I speak are not winning because they're not focusing on what's important now.
Hmm.
They're focusing on what's urgent now.
Hmm.
But it is that 1% each day, I get more clarity about who I am becoming.
Hmm.
That's over a year. That's a huge amount of language that gives expression of your fuller identity, your unfolding future identity.
Right.
That gives you so much reference framework to make decisions based on what's important, what matters to who you are, where you have authority.
Right.
That's huge.
Hmm.
Just 1%.
Right.
More clarity about who I'm becoming,
Right.
how I align my behavior, my mindset to who I am created to be and who I'm invited to become. Just that's the dreamer in me. I'm just imagining what would that do to the boardroom. And an earlier point you said, if you are a leader over hundreds of people, it's probably your leadership team who has the one-on-ones with them. But do you have a lead as a leader? Do you have your one-on-one moments with your leadership team members
Right.
so that you model how they behave?
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, you as the leader of the organization are the ambassador, the owner of the culture.
Yes.
So no delegation, but and I have another thousand thoughts. So what's the most important, I would not say thing, but dynamic of becoming an authentic leader? Just as the closing summary.
Yeah. So I know I'm going to probably be a little bit redundant, but I think it's really important because I always kid leaders that you're the CRO, and the CRO stands for the Chief Reminding Officer. So you have to consistently share and model and align your words and actions on a daily basis. And something, we talked about this briefly about leading. You're the example. Your people are catching what you're doing more than necessarily they're being taught from you. Although by your example, you I believe are having an opportunity to be a great teacher of what you expect because of your model. So like I'll just give you a quick example. Like it was important that our players in the off season got themselves in better shape. Well, I modeled that too because I worked out every day. Sometimes I work out with them, but again, it's the power of how you are becoming and what you stand for. Uh, so if you expect your players to be in shape and yet you're 50 pounds overweight, there's a real struggle with that. So I think those are some things that we really got to think about as leaders, that in becoming the person you want to become, it is a daily process, and that you are uh, leading by that example consistently so that people are catching that. And then the other thing that is, you be the chief encourager as well, that you catch people being right, doing things right, and make sure that you praise them with specific things like, you for example, one of our players, maybe I haven't seen him in 3 weeks in the off season, and I said, "Geez, John, I can really see you've been working out. You're putting on some more muscle." So that's an encourager. Those types of things. Or, I went to one of your fall league games, and I was really impressed at how much you improved your skills after we talked after the season. So I think that's the other thing, is that you have to recognize and praise the right things. And then, in building a culture, I think it really comes down to two things. what you consistently recognize and praise, and what you tolerate. Okay. So I'll give you two quick examples. So you see someone doing something really well, in our case, in a practice session, So I might say, John, that was awesome how you dove on that floor for that loose ball. That's what championship players do on championship teams. So it was very specific praise. But at the same time, it's what you tolerate. So if another segment in practice and one of our guys doesn't run back on defense, I would stop and say, "Hey, Joe, that's not how we do things here. You know what? When we make a mistake, that's okay. But we always talk to our players, and this uses in business, is the double air. And the double air is making a mistake, which I can accept because we're human beings. So, in basketball, the illustration is maybe you missed an easy shot. Okay. The double air is you missed the easy shot, which I'm not happy that you missed the easy shot, but that's a human error. But you did have control that you could run back on defense. Okay. And that's something you're really trying to encourage. So remember, building that culture, it's what you recognize consistently and also what you tolerate. And there's two ends to that. So,
That one is actually not redundant. It's very deep.
yeah.
Don't condemn people on taking risk and making a mistake. That's called learning.
Right.
But speak up when people, in their intention, in their motivation, accountability, responsibility, whatever intrinsic driver is there, are
Right.
not aligned with who they are,
Right.
knowing that they are in the team because the team fits them.
Yeah.
And that is easily overlooked
Yeah.
because it's easy to give someone a push when he took a risk and made a mistake.
Right.
And we all know that authentic leadership is about risk taking
Yes.
and not risk mitigating or risk avoiding.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to create a culture. We have to cultivate an ecosystem together
Right.
where it is praised and encouraged to keep trying again.
Right.
But don't just let the standard be watered by weird behavior in a way, out of lack.
Mm-hmm.
Let's not tolerate that
Right.
because you deserve better. We deserve more.
Right.
I love it. So we just have to bring this podcast to a close. I
Yeah.
think we could have another 4 or 5 episodes. So I really want to thank you, Jim, for this valuable insight. And I mentioned before, it sounds so real, true, obvious. But I think we really have to reflect on why reality is in many cases the opposite. And I think the answer why it's different lays in that last point you made. Because human error is good, but we
Right.
can't tolerate strange behavior.
Right.
That's not an error, that's
Right.
sabotage.
Yes. Yeah.
So I now want to thank our listeners as well for staying tuned with us to the end. And I trust that, like me, you have catched something in this conversation. Something sparked, something resonated. And I believe there are even like tangible, actionable things for your own journey. And I encourage you to take a stand for who you are and how you're developing by just leave a comment, share your thoughts. In most cases, it's the easiest but vital first step of embracing something is to repeat it. So I really encourage you to connect. Next week, we will have another episode of the Authentic Leadership Transformation Journey. And if you can't wait, we continue this conversation on a weekly basis in the A.L.T form. And I invite you to join the Alt Forum, experience it first before yourself, if that's the right space for you, because it's an exclusive peer dialogue for visionary leaders to pioneer and ponder the Alt question, the question that shapes our leadership to lead the future. Just use the link alt.businessrevivalist.com and just sign up to join and experience